And we pray, O Lord, for all those who are sick. Amen. Thank you, Rob.
Amen.
Thank you for adding me.
Especially our invalid friend, Mike.
I'm going to start my own leper colony up here.
Lord, he doesn't want to be sick. It's not his fault.
I need more faith. Do I sound pretty sick? I sound pretty sick in my own head.
You sound sick. I don't know if I'd say pretty sick.
The first thing I thought of when you opened your mouth was, oh, Mike's sick. I wonder if he has COVID.
Yeah. Nope. Doing all right. I have been pretty secluded into my room, though. Mm-hmm. Having people bring me food and medicines and things like that.
You watch any good movies?
No good movies. I've been doing army training up in my room, and it's been all virtual. So it's been kind of nice to be sick now because I can just keep doing it.
Do you have to do like monkey bars and the climbing wall and stuff virtually?
Yeah, they have you set it up in your room.
Mm-hmm. And then you just like play a shooting. Do you play like Fortnite for marksmanship?
Yep. And yeah, they got to teach you how to maneuver with the toggle stick, move your guy around. It's the future of combat.
Well, I mean, with drones and stuff, the Army basically is a big video game now.
That's the Air Force, okay? The Army's different. We're real. We're real people.
Mm-hmm.
The Chair Force is just people behind computers.
Oh, that's a good burn. I've never heard it.
Oh, yeah, dude. That's a popular one.
Chair Force. I've heard them called bus drivers.
Bus drivers. Yeah,
the Air Force.
I respect the Air Force. Let it be known.
I respect anybody who serves, except Mike.
Yeah, I do not. I do not respect the Air Force. No, I'm just kidding. I do. And then I'm reading this really good book series. So I've been trying to stay busy, sticking my head in books and things like that. So yeah, it's been good.
What's the book series?
It is called The Wheel of Time.
Babysitter Club? Oh.
And The Wheel of Time is, I think they just made an Amazon Prime TV show based on the book series, but it was given to me by a couple of parishioners back in the day, and it's like a fantasy type book series that is a lot like Lord of the Rings, actually so much so I told you this, Connor, but one of their terrain features, the topographical features, is called the Mountains of Mist. Which is different.
It's than the Misty Mountains.
But it's different than the Misty Mountains.
It's definitely different. No, it's very different.
Which is also different than the Mountains of Bisque.
That's true.
Is that your,
which is,
I'm
your assuming biceps? Where you live?
That's good. Want to see the Mountains of Bisques? That's your biceps. That's good. Anyways, is it the same kind of allegorical value as Lord of the Rings?
Dude, and then Middle Earth could be your pecs. Yeah, it's similar. It's similar but different. But it has the same idea as a creator, and it weaves the wheel of time and has a pattern that follows these certain characters that are, I can see definitely like Christ-like analogies in them. But more than anything, it's just a fun story as of right now. And there are 14 of these books, and each of them are like 800 to 900 pages.
Whoa.
Yeah. And so we're just diving in, and you can basically read as much as you want and not run out of reading. Yeah.
That's a lot of pages.
That's nice, dude.
That's a lot of words.
It is a lot of words.
I was hoping, man. Well, it's snowing like crazy here, so I can't read 1,400 pages in 2 snow days, unfortunately.
If you believed in yourself, you could.
Right.
Are you a fast reader? Like in a situation like that, like how many hours are you reading a day, and how many pages roughly would you say?
With this, I don't get stuck in like the details of the book and the story. Just kind of like let the story go and take in relevant information as it comes and just kind of enjoy it. So I bet I read probably 100 pages in 3 hours, something like that. I don't know, so 30 pages an hour or so. Yeah, that's probably right.
Yeah, that makes
I
sense
don't
to
know.
me.
Yeah.
I'm not a super fast reader either.
Yeah, I'm not.
Same. Is it as poetically beautiful as Lord of the Rings?
No, I would say not. But apparently the story, like the way that it unfolds, is pretty spectacular. And I had a priest friend that I actually respect, and he gave a cool compliment to the book that I've never heard somebody use in terms of literature. And he said there was like 3 or 4 moments in the series that he thought, wow, I didn't know you could do that with writing and storytelling. And so I can definitely see the potential for stuff like that to occur.
Did he say specific, like with the technique of it or the surprise of it, or do you know yet?
No, he didn't go into any detail with it.
You're going to flip a page and it's going to be a pop-up book. He's like, whoa, I didn't know you could do that.
Oh my gosh,
whoa.
dude.
Oh, there's the Mountains of Bisque right there in real life.
He's been working out.
I'm intrigued.
I was going to loop back a little bit to your Army training and the chair force. I've never understood, what's the current motto or the marketing slogan for the Army? Is it not Army of One anymore?
Now it's Army Strong.
See, that makes sense to me. When I was a kid, it was Be All You Can Be. And then like when I was a high school, college age, it was Army of One, which would have been the time they would have been recruiting people my age. But I did not understand that at all. What did that mean? I thought the Army, like when you join the Army, you're joining something bigger than yourself. Have we talked about this?
No.
What did they
say
mean
more
by
about that?
Well, I always picture, like, usually in the ads, there would be just like one guy or one girl who's like, I think it was trying to like tell you that you would become really good at stuff if you join the Army, and then you're kind of this like rugged individual, because they'd usually be by themselves, like hiking somewhere or doing something hard, like they're an army of one.
Right. Well, I wonder if it's playing off the United States motto of E pluribus unum.
Out of many one. That made sense to me. Like if it was an army of one, like we were one heart, one soul, one army, many members. But it seemed to me like it was saying the opposite. We're just a bunch of individuals who are getting something out of this.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. No, I actually heard somebody use that phrase today. He said, I thought we were an army of one. And he was talking about the relationship between the active duty army, the Army Reserve, and the National Guard, which are all kind of a part of the army, but then they all have to operate together in their like logistical and tactical maneuvers. So he was saying we're not operating like one, but we're all like disjointed. And he said, I thought we were an army of one, but
so maybe within intra-army, it's understood to mean that.
Yeah, maybe. But that also wouldn't make sense of why they use it as a campaign for marketing civilians.
Right.
Nobody would know that.
And the bigger question is, why army? It sounds like walkie-talkie. It kind of, what does that word come from? It's kind of sounds like a kid word.
It does.
You ever heard the joke? Where does the king keep his armies? In his sleeves.
I have heard that one. Yeah, I don't know.
In Spanish, it's ejército.
Ejército.
Dios de los ejércitos, God of the armies, God of hosts.
Yeah. De los soldados.
Oh man, what if you were called the U.S. host?
Wow, that would be pretty cool.
That'd be sick.
A host of a fighting force.
A host of warriors.
Man. There has been a type of spirituality that it has resonated with me, and like I've prayed to the Lord with it, this idea of being a soldier of Christ. Does that do anything for you guys? Which the church previously used to be called the church militant, the church on earth, and it's not that now, but it's more popularly called the Pilgrim Church. But I don't know, that's always spoke deeply to my heart, to be a soldier in that sense. Does that do anything for you guys?
Yeah, definitely. I think of the thing that came to mind initially was the two standards meditation of Ignatius. of just trying to imagine. That's been like a powerful experience for me. And if anyone doesn't know like what that is, it's part of the 30-day exercises, but I think like commonly used elsewhere, of just doing some imaginative prayer and kind of envisioning Satan's army, which is, it's like kind of this grotesque show of power. So it's just like, yeah, it has like a sulfury, just kind of grotesque showmanship to it, of all this promises of like luxury and power, and with it, where Christ's standard, the other one, is like very simple but strong, and so you kind of meditate on the two standards, and then you just discern like where you're at in your life. And I've always found that to be a very powerful meditation.
Yeah. It's kind of, to me, intertwined with the call of the earthly king too, because that's you're supposed to imagine a king calling you into his service. Only in order to serve him, you have to eat what he eats, sleep where he sleeps, go where he goes. And you're supposed to realize, like, of course you'd serve a king that's willing to do everything that he asks me to do, you know? And so how much more the King of Heaven, God himself, who came and lived our life and had nowhere to lay his head and had no riches to call his own, and is calling us into this kind of radical trust and to follow him regardless of what comes. But the same thing, I think, with the two standards in the armies is, I think the evil one coaxes members into his army, and he sends out through all the earth his minions to like recruit his army, which is the devils, the demons. At first through riches, and then honor, and then pride, I think. Whereas Christ and the angels and saints go out to offer people poverty, insult, and humility. Which obviously, like you're saying, this simple kind of humble army versus this showy, apparently powerful army on the evil side. But like the truth of it, I remember when I was on my 30-day, we did a sharing of graces, and a fellow seminarian shared his vivid imagination of what this scene looked like. And I don't know if it's like alien movies or some kind of horror movie kind of trope where it'll be like the chick chick, it'll kind of like click, and it's like you see this face, but then you see like the horror face, and then it clicks back, like, and you see the real zombie behind the fake mask. Have you ever seen that kind of camera trick before in a movie? Yeah. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, and you just displayed it really well. I was there.
Click, click. Tick, where it's like a little girl, neck. And then all of a sudden it's a skeleton, and then it's a little girl again or something,
See, did it, dude. Yeah. That's freaky stuff, man. That stuff freaky. Gets me.
Because it's showing you like, it's not all that meets the eye, And oh my gosh, there's a really creepy scene in Leprechaun like this. I'm just thinking of now. Remember those movies? Oof, no, do not watch them. They're old movies from the 90s that were horrible.
Are they similar to Were-Deer?
I'm sure that Were-Deer has more cinematic value than Leprechaun. Anyways, he imagined it as like that. Like Jesus is this, scourged, poor, insulted, humiliated man. But the truth is that he's this stately, noble king dressed in glory. Whereas the evil one is this, glory, worldly glory, all the trappings of worldly success and honor. But then deep down, like the click, click, you see that he's this like disfigured, curved in on itself, miserable ant. And so you have to have the eyes to see the true, like this standard is the one that I actually want to. So it's meant to move the affections, as all the spiritual exercises are. It's not just supposed to be like, I'm supposed to want to be poor and humble and be insulted. And so I'm just going to try to want that, but to like see the goodness behind the truth behind what's apparently, not valuable, that actually that's what I want. And that's who I want to serve, what army I want to be in, who I want to fight for, and also recruit more soldiers, because you want to be, like I always knew from Ninja Turtles, you want to be on the good guy's side, because if you mess up, the good guys always help you and they rescue you. Like if you accidentally lose a fight or do something wrong, not on purpose, or even on purpose, you're always forgiven by the good guys. Whereas if you're working for Shredder and you mess up, you're Bebop and Rocksteady, you're gonna get yourself handed to you by Shredder because he doesn't have any mercy.
That's a great point, dude. I've always associated too, I don't know if Ignatius talks about this specifically, but associated like a certain amount of like there's a lot of fear involved with the standard of the enemy. I think like the Lord of the Rings, honestly, in the books, of course, but like the movies as well, I think portray that like really well. Of like even the scene that's coming to mind is like at the end of the third one when they actually go to the gates, and it's in the extended version, but is it the mouth of Sauron? Is that the guy that comes out to meet them?
Yep,
and it's just totally grotesque. Like everything is unmasked at that point. And so then there's like this reliance on fear. And that's what he's trying to do. This like mouthpiece for the evil one is just, he's kind of like taking the gloves off and just trying to instill fear through lies. And it's like, the acting is very good in the scene because you can see it like kind of dawning on all of them that they're believing the lies. And then the king, Aragorn, he like beheads the mouth of Sauron. He says he won't believe it. So there's some cool images there. One of my favorite scenes in the movies is when they go to the gates, and I think it's just, he says like for Frodo, and Aragorn takes off running. But then the first two that run after him are Merry and Pippin, who are like these little hobbits. And so they're slower than everybody else, but they go first because it's their friend. And so that's always been like an image of the two standards for me there, of like, there's a reliance on relationship and friendship, like versus fear and isolation.
Yes. Man, that's so good. That's so stinking good. And see, so all of that, that's why that stuff is like, just, it's a masterpiece, because even within, so you have like those little components that make up the relationships that end up being the rise and the fall of the good guys and the bad guys, the light and the darkness. But then even within their own hearts, like Tolkien does a good job of breaking those things apart as well. That you have, these individual friendships are the things that move people into the light. And so it takes place on these really small scales, but then even the large strategic scale of like Sauron, the big dark enemy, fighting against the great light of Gandalf and King Aragorn and all these hosts that come out to meet them, and in front of the gates. A part of what they play on there is the evil one. He tries to, like you said, instill fear by this show of force. And because he does that, he moves all of his troops to the front of this gate so that he can try and scare them away and defeat them. But Sam and Frodo, because they're so small and simple, that's actually the way that they become victorious, is by actually sneaking through in their littleness. And so it's like, if you try and play the other game, like, you're going to lose at it. You have to play a different type of a game. And even within the hearts of like Frodo and Sam, they're doing it for all of Middle Earth and all those different things. But there is one scene in the book, Tolkien goes into it specifically with Sam, when he has to take the ring, and it's the inner monologue that Sam has with himself about Sam the Great and Sam the Wise, how if he put on the ring, he would just be this amazing guy. And he's like,
was that a rap you just wrote?
Yeah.
Sam the Great, Sam the Wise, and if he put the ring on, to be such a great guy. Something like that. That's pretty cool.
Dude, I'm delirious. I've been taking all these meds over here. Right?
Dropping bars, dude.
And he kind of like listens to himself and almost laughs at himself. And he says, like, I'm not even interested in those big things. Like, I just want a little plot of earth that I can till with my hand, and like just this little family that I can come home to. And so there's this like desire for simplicity that actually keeps Sam's heart pure. So it takes place on the lowest level, on the individual level. This is true. And then it also manifests itself on like the big strategic level between good and evil. And like all that stuff is interwoven into that story. It's in an unbelievable way, man. Tolkien's genius.
Dude, that's one of the reasons I think I've always had some reservations about when especially guys or particularly like seminarians will get into this militant imagery or language about the church and being a Christian and stuff. Is like, where I remember there was an old T-shirt in college. I think it was a Knight of Columbus one, where it was like this like military. It was like a knight's glove, like a armor thing with like a sword, and it somehow like made the rosary look like it was a thing to kill people with. You know what I mean? And it was supposed to like appeal to our aggressive, assertive, manly, masculine, whatever. But to me, it just kind of like rung really tinny and honestly a little cringy, as they would say today. Where I think what the two standard thing purifies is we all know, like deep down, that the world is not as it should be, and what is good in us that wants to do God's will, even though our wills do rebel against God's will. And so we experience conforming ourselves to his will as suffering, like renunciation, as we're being formed and becoming more who we are through baptism, another Christ, a member of his body. Like all that stuff is happening through God's grace, but it looks like often humiliation or just pure suffering and alienation. So it's not like this great show of force. It's like the exact opposite often. The war that's really being waged and won in our hearts, and then makes us zealous to go out and fight for the lost ones, even to fight for the ones that are on the other side fighting against us, like that kind of love is so not confrontational in the sense we're used to seeing it, and I do think like those who tend to use that imagery a lot are ones that are kind of like looking for a pretense. I don't want to judge, but seem to be looking for a pretense to hate the other side and to like feel very righteous in their anger towards them, like this is a war and we're fighting and blah blah blah. And in fact, where the enemy is at is in that pride. At the risk of being prideful myself and diagnosing that, but do you know what I mean? Like I've seen it in myself, so I know it's true. That there is a temptation to make our own knowledge of ourselves on God's side to be like an excuse to not be humble.
Yeah. And I think it goes back to, I love that the scene that you talked about with Sam, like saying like, I just want a little plot of land. It's actually because I relate so much to what you said, Bisk. Like one of the quotes that I have in my office, and it's just on a little piece of paper, I taped it up, but it's from St. Rose Philippine Duchesne. I think that's how you say her name, but her shrine, she's buried in St. Charles, Missouri. And so she was a sister that like evangelized, I think kind of like the Great Plains, did a lot of schools. And so I've really grown into devotion to her. But that's what she says as well in this quote, is that like God gives us a very small patch of land to till. But so you just focus on that. And I need reminded of that so often. It's crazy. And I know, I mean, even, I'm preaching at the Seek conference for like our campus and a couple others tomorrow. And this will be part of the homily, but not all of it, but part of it. But I'm just going to tell the story of, I just recently went to see, did you ever meet Father John Titus, legend? He preached my first mass.
Yeah, for sure. He always wore Birkenstocks.
Always.
That's right.
He was my internship pastor, preached my first mass. Mm-hmm. And there is a 0% chance of him listening to this, but a side note. But he is like, I'm convinced the guy is like an actual saint. And man, honestly, like some moments he tells it how it is. Like he's gruff in a lot of ways and really funny. But if you want to see a real saint and not a wannabe saint, then you can go to Mattoon, Illinois, and find Father John, because all he cares about in the world, like the only thing he cares about, is like what God has given him right there. And you can think anything you want about him. I mean, nothing. Like that's all he cares about is this little pocket of land that he's responsible for, and the souls there. Mm-hmm. And if you live like that, it's just like, it's inspiring to be around, man, with like no glamour and no fluff.
Yep. It's so real too. Like a lot of the, again, the standard of the enemy is so much smoke and mirrors. It's not, it all has to be a show. There's nothing really beneath it. And I think a lot of the blustering and shows of force on whatever side people think they're on, right or left or good or evil or whatever thing they think they're fighting for. Like usually the humble, usually the John Tituses or whoever. I remember on a mission trip I went on last year or 2 years ago, there's a guy down in Gallup, New Mexico diocese at this little parish, and just doing his thing, teaching the catechism to the kids and the adults, and just humbly doing the work, kind of like what you're describing. And I thought, man, you could do a lot worse than this. It's always tempting when I'm in those kind of places to be like, man, if I was just a priest here, I think I'd probably be a saint, because it's so easy to focus on the things that matter and the people that are right in front of you, and not be on the internet so much and getting mad and thinking that that's solving any problems. Like it's so earthy to be responsible for a limited thing. But then that's also kingly. That's the other paradox, is that that's the realm of God's realm that he's given you to rule. And that's wisdom too, like just knowing what's beyond your capacity to know or to do anything about, and to simply, but then, like people in their houses or their families or certain relationships where I'm called to lead here. And I can actually do something about it. Well, it's much easier to complain about how the other leaders aren't leading good, regardless of how I'm doing,
Yeah.
Again, I'm just preaching to myself, because I know that I do this. When I have something hard I don't want to do, that's going to cause me poverty, insults, and humility, I will just say it's someone else's fault that that the world is the way it is, and not because I refuse to take responsibility for what I've been given to do. That's, to me, being a warrior, by the way. And I think that's the soldiers of Christ. That to me is inspiring. And it is relational. It's kind of like Sam, or what is it, Merry and Pippin? Like, yes, I'll go because that's my friend Frodo. I have some skin in the game.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes me think of the Steward King conversation that we had a little while back. I think it's kind of up that same alley. And, it also makes me think of, there are some amazing, I think it's Progressive commercials where...
That Flo from Progressive?
Not Flo. His name is Dr. something or another.
Captain Obvious?
And not Captain Obvious. That's, I think, a hotel.com or something like that. But this guy, he teaches a seminar on how to not become your parents.
Oh, those are funny.
Very
After
funny.
you start home buying.
Yeah.
Are y'all familiar with this? Yeah. And it's like, so I have a couple of siblings that have bought houses, and like I have seen it happen right before my very eyes. And there's so much pride and like this desire to take care of this little plot of land and these few souls that they've been given. And it's not huge, but it actually is really small. But there is something that just clicks on, it seems like, in the heart of a guy, a heart of, I guess in this case, particularly like the masculine heart. I'm sure it looks very similar in a feminine heart to some extent.
Joan of Arc.
Yeah, but like, I want to take care of this little plot of land that I have here, and I want to be a good steward, and I want this to be a little kingdom here. And without fail, all of them, as soon as they bought homes, like I have this little area marked out for me that I'm responsible for. And well, let me tell you, I had a guy over here to like check out my bat problem, and there's, we were up in the attic, and I'll show you all the slats and crevices where the bats can sneak in. And next thing I know, we're like outside, and he's pointing up at the roof, and I'm like, I have no idea what's going on, what he's talking about, but he's so into it. That's his little kingdom. That's his little domain. That's his domicile. I think we experience that in our own ways, the spiritual pastoralship portion. But yeah, there's definitely something innate to the human heart that desires to do that and to do it well.
Yeah. Well, even the we may have talked about this on the podcast. It was in the Peter Kraft interview with Matt Fradd. They talked about the end of Lord of the Rings and how they both wept when they read it, and it made me go back to it. Did we talk about this already?
Yeah, and
I think you had mentioned it.
Yeah, I remember this.
But it's just so like you talk about all this kind of the grandness of that story and how it intertwines in that, and but how Tolkien ends the trilogy is with Sam's little girl sitting on his lap, and like because they're safe at home. And then like that was Peter Kraft's great like kind of insight to it of like that's why you fight wars, so that like I think it's little Sally can like rest safely on her dad's knee.
Yeah. That to me, dude, that's brings up a lot of the mystery of life, is like where I can get up for the fight, like I'm definitely feeling that dad energy here at the Newman Center. Like now I have this place, and I've, watched it transform a little bit, prosper the work of our hands, Lord, here, this is what I did about my bat problem kind of stuff. But like what about like when you're done, like with the chapel? That's kind of a spot I'm in right now. It's like these places where we rest on the way that are a sign of the place where we're going to end up. A friend of mine says it's heaven all the way to heaven. Like we're going somewhere. We're going to sit at the table with the Trinity, and it's not going to be like, oh, we need to get up and fight. And we're just there, like, okay, once you're there, the fight is over. And that's what that scene shows, is like, okay, now this is literally happily ever after, but isn't that boring? But that's where the leisure thing, I think we talked about that last time or a couple times ago, comes in, is to be able to be at rest in communion. And that's where some of that militant stuff also in me has been just a restlessness, like I'm unhappy. I'm unsure of my relationships or my identity, and therefore I go out and I fight, and it's a self-reliant, prideful thing, not a receptive, humble, open thing. In other words, like I'm fighting a fight that's not the actual fight, where here's the fight and I won't do it, where the thing that's in my realm, in my little patch of land, because I'm not happy with it. So I just go off and I focus on something else and try to fight that fight, even though I'm just like shouting at windmills. I'm not actually doing anything. I'm just reading articles online and getting mad and sharing them via text with you guys. But yeah, I kind of lost my train of thought, but that's to me, like the Samwise with his daughter is like, what is your Shangri-La? What's their place called? The Shire? What is heaven? Because there are foretastes of it here, like where we taste that rest, and which keeps us going in the fight. But the fight is not the point. The point of the fight is the means. That's what sometimes I worry. I don't know And it freaks me out because what about when these projects end? What about when the bat problem is solved? Then what? Watch Netflix? In my domicile? I'll just call you guys.
Just call, dude. Just call.
Yeah, I don't know. You raise a good point because there is something very meaningful and about being productive. And I don't think it's just like work does have dignity, and we've talked about that before as well. I think it's a lack of ability to imagine what heaven will be like. That I don't think it is just going to be all of us sitting around, like just infinitely eating as much as we want at this table with the Trinity. But there will be some. I don't know what it will be, but Dostoevsky, he said, if you gave everybody as much food and as much money and as much bread as they want, they would destroy the whole thing just to watch something surprising happen. You're like,
yeah, that's true.
That's weird, but it's true. And I don't think that's only the result of the fall, but that I think we're made for something more than just getting everything that we need.
Mm-hmm.
And that means some like embodied participation in creation in heaven. And I truly don't know what that means, but like how beautiful would that be if heaven was building the city of God perfectly with the Father, like constructing, learning from the Father, like you're a kid in a wood shop. That's so fun. And dad's teaching you everything and you get to work with them and all. If it was like something like that, which there is a learning and a kind of healthy toiling that goes along with it. So, but I think it's more of an exercise to reimagine what that heavenly leisure will look like. Not so much that we'll just have time to like, well, let's just kick our feet up and relax. Yeah.
Now you got my imagination spinning. It's kind of like the that Chesterton allegory talks about where the two boys get a wish, and one wishes to be a giant that can walk across continents, and one wishes to be like a little Tom Thumb that's an inch tall. And the giant, like in a day, gets sick of his life and dies of boredom because he can like see everything in a single step. So there's no wonder. And then the Tom Thumb guy is, years hence, and he's still having an adventure in the backyard. So our perspective on things, like the smallness, and that to me, what heaven must be like to imagine being bored in heaven is such an insult to God, or it's just absolute grandiosity, narcissism to think that God could bore me because I'm so tiny compared to him. But we talk about the human scale here. Like, how could I even have a relationship with God in heaven? Like, if it's seeing God face to face, okay, well then I'm just like basically being thrown at the sun and I'll get burned up on reentry. But there's something like his invitation to the table, that icon of the Trinity is what I was referring to, is like, how is it that I can actually be here with you and be friends with you? And it's often what my imagination is seeing is the heavenly city, the heavenly Jerusalem. We always talk about the heaven being like the city. And, I live in Chicago. I'm just picturing like, what if it was heavenly Chicago? Like you're saying, like we're building the Father with the Father. We're building this city. Because it is on a human scale. It's for us. He doesn't need buildings to live in. He doesn't need shelter from the rain. But like here we are on this lake. Like, what would Chicago be like if I was free of all my fear? I had no fear. And there was no one, like if I walked into this symphony hall, it wouldn't cost me any money. I wouldn't feel awkward that I don't know where to sit or I don't have a ticket. Like, it's just, we all interiorly are ordered, and the city is all ordered to communion with God and community with one another. How fun it would be to just explore that city. And I have my job in it, and I participate in it according to my identity and my role and my membership in the body. That's a cool thing to think about, because that's the analogy of like Revelation is the heavenly Jerusalem. It's like this city. It's just this complex organism of all these people and buildings and places and culture and stuff. And that is when you do taste heaven, is when you feel that on earth, like in a home, or when the Cubs win the World Series or something, where you're just like, it just bursts up, something surprising happens. But it's not just a destructive fireworks show, like we're going to burn all the bread. It's like, whoa, something dynamic and lively and creative happened here. And it was out of all of us together. You know, that's a cool image. I've never thought of that. If there's building in heaven.
I love building stuff, man.
Me too.
Lego Masters.
Maybe think of one of my favorite stories of yours, Bisque, from years past is when you did the Christmas play in Blue Island.
Oh yeah.
There's always been something that has struck me in that way of like, yeah, that's like, you know, that's really cool anyway. Like those type of stories of like, there's something right about that story.
I could just see it in my mind. Like these kids memorizing the Gospel of Luke in some infancy narrative, acting it out, having a real baby Jesus, and then singing Christmas carols around that gazebo.
It's so great, dude. It's so good. Yeah. My favorite from those, I think it's Progressive. I think that is those commercials. So you got like the nerd dad, and he goes to the bar, and he's like, has these terrible dance moves. And he's out there just like clearing space on the dance floor. And he's doing the guitar strum. And then he yells to his friends, come on, jump in, boys. The water's fine. Around jalapeno poppers for the boys. It's the best. He's got like the sweater tied around his waist.
That's a good one. I think my favorite one of those is when they just have a chair, like a single chair, and they're standing around it, and they have one of the guys sit down, and he's like, and the guy, it just shakes his head and goes, okay, that was completely unnecessary. Yeah.
That's probably the biggest difference of working out at a college rec center versus an LA Fitness in the south suburbs is like, I never was going to the LA Fitness, my parish for 4 years. The amount of groaning in the locker room was insane. Guys just coming in from their workout, just opening the locker. I never hear the college kids do that. I wonder, am I doing that? Because I'm almost 40.
Oh my goodness.
Will be soon. I
mean, I got 4 years, but 3-ish years.
That dude, he puts on a seminar. He goes, okay, raise your hands if you raise your hands if you printed off directions to get here today. Okay, you're definitely in the right place. You woke up at 4 a.m. this morning and couldn't go back to sleep? Nobody cares. Nobody cares. He has them all. He wrote up quinoa on a whiteboard.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, let's take turns trying to. Quinoa.
Oh man, the one that got me, they're at the airport and they're in like the bookstore at the airport, and the guy is going to buy like a bag of chips or gummy bears or something, and like the mom comes up and she like hits it and she goes, no, all this stuff is totally overpriced here, and she brings out this big foil thing. She's like, I packed all kinds of snacks. And the guy just comes up and he takes it from her and he throws it in the trash.
I'm for making the sandwich for the plane now. It's like, why pay all this money for unsatisfying snack food?
Because I'm becoming my parent. We're in our 30s, dude.
Exactly. Because you're 40.
It's so funny, though.
Right, it is funny. What was the one you said before the quinoa? Oh, printing out directions.
Printing out directions.
I watched the new Aziz Ansari. It's like a half an hour special. He just went to the Comedy Store or whatever, one of those New York clubs, the famous ones, and did a set, like a surprise set at the end of the night. And it's pretty funny. But he's kind of been famous for critiquing like the whole social media world and algorithmic outrage and whatnot. And he has some funny jokes about it, but he reveals that he uses a flip phone now. He finally downgraded to the flip phone. And
no way.
It's great. The only two things is you have to print out detailed directions when you want to go somewhere you've never been, and texting takes a really long time.
Wow.
So he calls more people now than texts them. But it was actually really like cool. When he pulled it out, he was making the joke and he's like, I finally did this and I got my mind back. And he holds up the flip phone. And I, like, my heart leapt. I was like, maybe I could do that. But I don't think I need to. We've talked about this before, and this is ad nauseum topic, but I do think that's a war that can be won.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
That's really great. Okay, hey, so before we finish, do you watch the Coyote Peterson videos?
Oh, yeah. No, just the Tarantula Hawk.
Did you see the Tarantula
Hawk? Oh, my gosh.
Rob, did you dive into this?
No, I haven't yet. I haven't.
Oh, my gosh, dude. It looked, you'd think it was fake, but it looks so... How could it be faked?
No, it's not fake.
Like his arm is swelling up before your eyes.
Yes.
But the way he just takes the thing in the tongs and just puts it on his arm.
Uh-huh.
And lets it bite him. Oh my gosh. The buildup is insane.
The buildup is insane. What a name for an insect.
Yeah.
A tarantula wasp.
Does it eat tarantulas or something? Is that why it's called that? I didn't watch a lot of the info at the beginning. I just went straight to the bite. It's like a 15-minute video, and I know the point of it is the bite.
I'm gonna look it up now.
Like it's hard to fast forward YouTube.
You missed all the science stuff, man. You learned nothing.
I skipped the lab coat, went straight to the jackass.
Well, good. I'm sure we've edified our listeners with that recommendation.
Mm-hmm. I'm looking it up now. Shout out to Megan Ulrich, as always. We can't say it on here, but the title that she wanted for that episode was spot on.
Mm-hmm.
It was.
Yeah, and I did want to shout out Megan as well for her newsletter. Her last Wednesday work, or whatever she calls her newsletter, was outstanding. I already emailed her and told her how much I thought of it, but she's a real blessing, and I think she should put on our show notes how to sign up for her newsletter, so our listeners all are on it.
That's a great idea. She is a super blessing.
Absolutely.
We're lucky to have her and other people like her on the team. Well, hey guys, I got to go facilitate a class in Espanol.
Facilitarlo?
La misa. So I got to get going, guys.
All right.
See you, dudes.
Hasta luego, Jindobres.
Hasta luego.